The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with fear. 200 alien species, all considered the brightest minds in the galaxy, sat in their floating pods arranged in giant circles. Their voices mixed into a storm of worried whispers. The massive hologram in the center of the hall showed their worst nightmare, a swarm of silver machines consuming an entire solar system. Ambassador Thomas Reed sat quietly in Earth's simple metal pod, watching the chaos unfold. As the only human in the room, he couldn't help but notice how different the other species were. Most had evolved on gentle worlds with perfect weather and few predators. Their bodies were soft, their movements careful and slow. Even now, facing extinction, they maintained what they called proper civility. The first speaker, a tall being with silvery skin named Marcus, raised all four of his arms for silence. My fellow council members, the machine civilization has consumed 3 more systems this week. Our predictions show they will reach core worlds in less than 6 months. A holographic display appeared, showing countless battles. In each one, the Council's ships fought in perfect formations, following textbook strategies developed over 1,000 years. And in each battle, the machines crushed them. Our best military minds have run 10 million simulations, Marcus continued, his voice heavy. Using our current tactics, we have a 99.8% chance of complete defeat. All organic life in the galaxy will be converted into machine parts. The room erupted again. Some representatives cried, others argued, but most just sat there, frozen in fear. Reed noticed how they all followed the same patterns, like prey animals trying to decide which way to run. Perhaps, a small voice said from the lower levels, we need a different kind of thinking. All eyes turned to find a young aide, barely out of training. She stood straight despite the attention, her blue scales shimmering. We keep fighting like species that evolved on safe worlds. Maybe we need help from someone who evolved somewhere dangerous. You mean? Marcus's eyes widened. A Deathworlder. The word sent shivers through the crowd. Deathworlder. It meant someone from a planet that should have killed them. A planet like Earth. Reed stood up, knowing this was Earth's moment. My fellow council members, humanity evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We faced giant predators, deadly weather, and constant dangers. We didn't just survive. We became the most dangerous thing on our planet. But you're civilized now, someone protested. Reed smiled. We are. But we never forgot how to fight. How to think like predators when we need to. And right now, against these machines, you don't need more civilized thinking. You need someone who knows how to hunt. This is highly irregular, Marcus said, but Reed saw hope in his eyes. What do you suggest? Let me call in a human military expert, someone who can look at this problem with different eyes, someone who knows how to fight when the odds are impossible. The council chambers erupted in debate. Some representatives were horrified at the idea of using primitive tactics. Others were desperate enough to try anything. Reed watched them argue, remembering how his own ancestors must have looked when deciding whether to attack a mammoth, scared, but hungry enough to take the risk. After 3 hours of debate, Marcus called for a vote. The results appeared in the air. By a margin of just 3 votes, they would accept human help. Very well, Marcus said, still looking uncertain. Ambassador Reed, you may call your expert, but please, try to send someone who can be diplomatic. Reed nodded, already pulling out his communicator. He knew exactly who to call. Colonel James Stone wasn't diplomatic, but he knew how to win impossible fights. And right now, that's what the galaxy needed. As he sent the message, Reed looked up at the hologram of the machine swarm. For the first time since this crisis began, he felt real hope. The council races had forgotten how to be dangerous, but humans never had that luxury. Earth had taught them lessons written in blood and bone, lessons that might just save the galaxy. The council didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn how a species of clever apes from a death world had become the galaxy's most successful survivors. 3 days after the Council's vote, Colonel James Stone walked into the Great Hall, and every alien in the room felt their ancient survival instincts scream predator. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and scars on his face that told stories of battles won. Unlike the flowing robes of the Council members, he wore a simple black uniform that showed off his muscular frame. The aliens watched him move with a mix of fear and fascination. Where they glided smoothly, he stalked like a hunter. His boots made solid sounds against the polished floor. Click, 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 and more than a few Council members flinched at each step. Ambassador Reed met him in the center of the hall, under the giant hologram of the machine swarm. "Colonel Stone, thank you for coming on such short notice." Stone's voice was deep and rough, like gravel under tank tracks. "When someone tells me the galaxy's about to end, I clear my schedule." He looked up at the hologram, his eyes narrowing. "These the ones causing trouble." First Speaker Marcus floated down in his pod, trying to look dignified despite his nervousness. "Colonel Stone, we appreciate your willingness to assist. Perhaps we should first discuss proper Council protocols and—" "Show me your battle plans," Stone interrupted. "All of them. Now." Marcus blinked all four of his eyes. "But the protocols are getting people killed." Stone's words cut through the hall like a knife. "You called me here because what you're doing isn't working. So show me what you're doing wrong." The Council members looked at each other, shocked by his directness. But they couldn't argue with his logic. Soon, dozens of holograms filled the air around Stone, showing fleet movements, defense strategies, and battle formations. Stone walked through the holograms, studying each one. After 10 minutes, he did something that shocked the Council even more than his arrival. He laughed. "What's so amusing?" Admiral Dawn asked. She was one of the Council's top military leaders, her tentacles twitching with irritation. "This." Stone waved at the plans. "All of it. You're fighting like prey animals trying to look big and scary. Puffing yourselves up, making noise, showing off your fancy ships. And when that doesn't work, you run away in perfect formation. These are time-tested strategies," someone shouted from the upper levels. "Tested against enemies who think like you do," Stone countered. "But these machines, they're predators, and you're fighting them like prey." He walked to the central console and started deleting battle plans. The Council gasped as centuries of military doctrine vanished with a few taps of his fingers. "Look at this formation." He pointed to one of the few plans he'd left. 500 ships in a perfect triangle. Beautiful, elegant, and completely predictable. The machines can calculate every move you'll make because you're following rules they can learn. Ambassador Reed watched as Stone brought up a new display, showing Earth's military history. On our world, Reed explained to the stunned Council, those who fought by the rules often lost to those who didn't. Stone nodded. "We learned warfare from wolves hunting in packs, from snakes striking from hiding, from apes using tools to kill bigger animals. We learned to be unpredictable because predictable things died." He turned to face the Council, his scared face serious. "You want to beat these machines. Stop fighting like prey. Start fighting like predators." "And how exactly do predators fight?" Admiral Dawn asked, but there was curiosity in her voice now. Stone smiled, and several Council members moved their pods back instinctively. It wasn't a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of a wolf spotting a weakness. "We strike from the shadows," he said. "We lay traps. We use their strength against them. We make them fear the dark spaces between stars. And most importantly," he looked each Council member in the eye, "we never, ever fight fair." The Council chamber fell silent. These beings had spent thousands of years building a civilization based on rules and order. Now they were being told that their survival depended on breaking those very rules. Ambassador Reed watched it all with satisfaction. The Council had wanted human help. Well, they were about to get it, and the galaxy would never be the same. The next morning, Colonel Stone stood before the Council's military command, his massive frame casting a shadow over the holographic display table. The room was smaller than the Great Hall, but still elegant with its crystal walls and floating lights. 20 of the galaxy's highest-ranking military leaders watched as Stone began his presentation. Lesson 1, he said, bringing up an image of Earth's jungles. Nature doesn't care about fair fights. The smallest snake can kill the largest animal with the right poison. The tiniest ant colony can bring down creatures thousands of times their size. Admiral Dawn floated closer, her tentacles moving with interest. And how does this apply to fighting machines? Stone changed the display to show the machine fleet. Right now, you attack them head-on, ship against ship. That's exactly what they expect. Instead, he pressed a button, and the display changed to show clouds of tiny dots surrounding the machine ships. We release millions of microdrones. Microdrones? First speaker Marcus asked. But they're too small to cause damage. Alone, yes. Stone's smile was sharp. But what happens when 1 million of them release corrosive chemicals into a machine's joints, or slip into their engines and jam the moving parts? Ever tried to fight when your knees are being eaten away? The council members shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the noble combat they were used to. This was dirty. Next lesson. Stone continued, ignoring their discomfort. Psychological warfare. But machines don't have psychology, someone protested. They have programming. Stone corrected. And programming can be twisted. Look at this. He showed a battle recording where council ships fought in perfect formations. You're teaching them how to beat you. Every time you follow the same patterns, their AI learns. He brought up a new simulation. In this one, council ships moved erratically, some flying straight at the enemy, others hiding behind asteroids, still others pretending to malfunction before springing traps. Chaos, Stone explained. Unpredictability. Make them waste processing power trying to understand your strategy when there is no strategy. In nature, prey animals move in straight lines. Predators move in zigzags. Admiral Dawn's eyes widened. You want us to fight like primitives? Ambassador Reed, who had been quietly watching from the corner, stepped forward. Admiral, on Earth, we have a saying. Civilization is a thin veneer. When survival is at stake, there's no shame in using every tool available. Stone nodded. The machines think in binary, win or lose, advance or retreat. But nature. He brought up images of Earth's predators. Wolves hunting in packs, spiders building webs, octopi changing colors to hide. Nature finds 1 million ways to survive. He spent the next hour showing them new tactics. Ships hiding in solar radiation to mask their heat signatures, fleets using debris fields as cover, fighters intentionally taking damage to lure enemies into traps. Each example made the council members more uneasy, but they couldn't deny the logic. Final lesson, Stone said, his voice growing serious. The most important one. In nature, even prey animals fight like devils when cornered. You've all forgotten that part of yourselves. The part that knows how to bare its teeth. He looked around the room, meeting each alien's eyes. Every species here evolved from creatures that survived countless challenges. You didn't get to the stars by being weak. Those survival instincts are still in you, buried under all this. He waved at the elegant room. Civilization. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Dawn moved to the display table and replayed one of Stone's simulations. The micro-drone tactic, she said slowly. We could adapt our repair bots for that purpose. They're already designed to work in small spaces. Stone's face broke into a genuine smile, not the predatory grin they'd seen before, but one of approval. Now you're thinking like a survivor. One by one, other council members began to speak up, suggesting modifications to Stone's plans, adding their own ideas. The elegant room filled with talk of ambushes and traps, of deception and guerrilla tactics, of fighting dirty to survive. Ambassador Reed watched it all with satisfaction. The council races were finally remembering something important. Before they were civilized, they were survivors, and somewhere in their genetic memory, they still knew how to fight. The machines might have perfect logic on their side, but they were about to learn what happened when you cornered thinking, feeling beings who wanted to live. They were about to learn about the fury of nature itself. 2 weeks after Stone's training began, the machines attacked the border system of New Haven. But this time, things were different. In the command center of the defense station, Admiral Dawn watched the battle unfold alongside Colonel Stone. Her tentacles, usually kept in proper military stance, moved with barely contained excitement. The massive screens showed hundreds of machine ships advancing in their usual perfect grid formation. "They're following their standard attack pattern," she said, her voice low. "Just like you predicted." Stone nodded, his scared face reflected in the screen's glow. "They always do. Machines love patterns. Let's show them how nature deals with predictability." The machine fleet approached the seemingly empty system. Their scans showed only a few civilian ships fleeing in panic, exactly what they expected. What their scans didn't show were the thousands of modified repair drones hiding in the system's thick asteroid belt, their power signatures masked by mineral deposits. "Now," Stone commanded. Admiral Dawn gave the signal. The repair drones swarmed out of hiding like angry hornets. Each one was smaller than a human hand, but there were millions of them. They surrounded the machine ships, finding every crack and joint in their armor. "First rule of hunting bigger prey," Stone said, watching the chaos unfold. "Attack the weak spots." The machine's perfect formation broke as their ships began spinning and jerking erratically. The tiny drones were eating through crucial systems, jamming weapons and disrupting communications. Several machine ships started firing randomly, trying to hit enemies too small to target. "Second wave," Admiral Dawn ordered, her military training mixing smoothly with her newly awakened predatory instincts. From behind New Haven's sun came the real attack fleet. But these weren't the neat, orderly formations the machines knew. These ships moved like a pack of wolves, some drawing enemy fire while others struck from blind spots. Their movements seemed random, unpredictable, following no pattern the machines could analyze. "Look at their response," Stone pointed at the screen. "Their AI is struggling. They can't predict where the next attack will come from because there's no logic to predict." He was right. The machine fleet's movements became increasingly erratic. Some ships clustered together for protection, making themselves perfect targets for the Council's new sonic pulse weapons. Others scattered, only to be picked off by hunting pairs of fighters. Ambassador Reed entered the command center just in time to see a massive machine cruiser spin out of control, its navigation systems corrupted by the repair drones. "Amazing," he said. 2 weeks ago, our people would have run from that cruiser. Now they're bringing it down like a swarm of angry bees." "We didn't just teach them new tactics," Stone said, watching Admiral Dawn coordinate the attack with fierce joy. "We reminded them of who they used to be. Every species here evolved from survivors." The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the machine fleet was in ruins. The Council forces had lost only 12 ships, the lowest casualty rate since the war began. But more importantly, they'd learned something valuable. They could win. In the aftermath, Admiral Dawn approached Stone with a new light in her eyes. "My ancestors," she said slowly, "before they built cities and wrote poetry. They were ocean hunters. They used to hunt in groups, surrounding larger prey, attacking the weak points first." She looked at her tentacles as if seeing them differently. "I always thought those were primitive memories we needed to forget. But today, those memories saved us." Stone put a hand on her shoulder, a very human gesture that she no longer found uncomfortable. "Being civilized doesn't mean forgetting how to survive. It means knowing when to use everything you've learned, both old and new." Around them, the command center buzzed with activity as reports came in from across the galaxy. Other council races were reporting similar successes using Stone's tactics. The machines were facing something they'd never encountered before: organized chaos, intelligent unpredictability, the combination of advanced technology with primal hunting instincts. "Send word to all sectors," Admiral Dawn commanded, her voice strong and sure. "The new defense protocols are working. Tell them." She looked at Stone with a predator's smile. "Tell them it's time to hunt." The message went out across Council space. The prey had remembered how to be predators, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 month after the victory at New Haven, Colonel Stone stood in a briefing room aboard the Council's newest warship, the Predator's Dawn. The name itself showed how much things had changed. A month ago, no Council ship would have had such an aggressive title. "This is where we change the game," Stone said to the mixed species strike team before him. "The machines think their core systems are safe. That's exactly why we're going to hit them there." The strike team was unlike anything the Council had ever created. 20 beings from 15 different species, each chosen not for their elegant combat records, but for their ability to think like hunters. Admiral Dawn's second-in-command, a warrior named Swift, clicked his claws in anticipation. His people had once been tunnel hunters before becoming engineers. "Show us the target," Swift said, his eyes glowing with predatory focus. Stone brought up a hologram of a massive machine factory complex. "This is where they build their fighter ships. The machines think it's safe because it's surrounded by sensor arrays and automated defenses. But you know what I see?" He grinned. "I see a web of predictable patrol patterns and blind spots just waiting to be exploited." The team spent hours studying the approach. Unlike traditional Council planning sessions, this one was filled with animated discussions about ambush points and escape routes. A former herbivore species had suggested using electromagnetic pulses to blind the sensors, remembering how their ancestors used to kick up dust to confuse predators. As they prepared to leave, Ambassador Reed entered the briefing room. "Colonel," he said, "the Council wanted me to give you this." He handed Stone a small crystal, the highest honor the Council could bestow. "They said whether this mission succeeds or fails, you've already changed the galaxy." Stone looked at the crystal, then passed it to Admiral Dawn, who had just entered. "Keep it safe for me. I've got hunting to do." The mission launched 3 hours later. The Predator's Dawn carried them into machine territory, using the new stealth systems developed by combining Council technology with Earth camouflage techniques. They hid in debris fields, powered down among asteroids, and moved only when the machines looked away, just like any good predator stalking its prey. When they reached the factory system, Stone's team deployed in small, agile craft that looked more like space-going insects than warships. They slipped through the sensor net using paths that seemed random, but were carefully planned to exploit the machine's rigid patrol patterns. "Like water finding cracks in a rock," Stone whispered, watching his team move. Each member added their own ancestral hunting wisdom to their approach. The tunnel hunters knew exactly how to use the factory's own structure to hide their heat signatures. The former tree dwellers understood instinctively how to move in three-dimensional space without being noticed. The first machine patrol knew something was wrong only when Swift's claws tore through their central processor. By then, it was too late. The strike team moved like a perfectly coordinated pack, each member knowing their role without needing orders. "Phase 2, Stone commanded, and the team split into smaller hunting groups. They planted explosives at key points, corrupted central computers with viral code, and left tiny sabotage devices in maintenance ducts. All the while, the massive factory continued its work, unaware that it was already dead. When the charges blew, the destruction was complete. The factory's own power core turned against it, and its security systems fought imaginary threats while the real hunters slipped away. Stone watched from the Predator's Dawn as the massive complex tore itself apart. "Send the message," he told Admiral Dawn, who had coordinated the extraction. Across machine territory, their signal played on every frequency. "You are not the only ones who can hunt. You are not the only ones who can strike from shadows. Every world you threaten holds species that survived millions of years of evolution. We are coming for you." Back on the bridge, Admiral Dawn's tentacles moved in patterns that would have looked primitive to her younger self, but now felt perfectly natural. "The machines calculate everything in terms of technological advancement," she said. "They never considered that going backward might be the way to move forward." Stone nodded, watching the burning factory through the view screen. "That's the thing about evolution," he said. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We just needed to remember them." The strike team had proved something important. The machines could be hurt. They could be hunted. And now, all across the galaxy, ancient hunting instincts were awakening. The prey was becoming the predator, and the machines had no way to calculate what would happen next. 3 months after the factory raid, the Council's war room looked more like a nature documentary than a military command center. Holographic displays showed Earth's predators alongside battle plans. Colonel Stone stood watching as Admiral Dawn explained their latest victory to the Council members. "The machines attacked Beta System, expecting our usual defense grid," Dawn said, her tentacles moving with warrior's pride. "Instead, they found this." She played a recording of Council ships hunting in formations copied from shark packs. "We lost 6 ships. They lost 60. First speaker Marcus, who once would have flinched at such violent displays, now leaned forward with interest. "Show them what we did in the Outer Rim," he said. The display changed to show a machine fleet pursuing what seemed to be damaged Council ships. The damaged ships led the machines straight into a nebula, where hundreds of Council vessels waited, hidden in the cosmic dust, like spiders in webs. "They're still trying to understand our behavior using pure logic," Stone explained. "That's why they're losing. Nature isn't logical. It's adaptive." Ambassador Reed, who had been updating Earth's military command, stepped into the room. "We're getting reports from all over the galaxy," he announced. "Every species is adding their own hunting techniques to our strategy database." He brought up several displays. One showed ships using hunting patterns from pack predators. Another displayed ambush tactics learned from ancient aquatic hunters. A third demonstrated stealth techniques developed by stalking species. "Look at this," Reed said proudly. "The Rim worlds are using swarm tactics based on their ancestors' hive hunting behaviors. The deep space colonies are adapting cave hunter techniques for asteroid fields." Stone walked around the room, studying each new tactic. "The machines can't predict our movements anymore because we're not following any single pattern. We're using millions of years of evolutionary experience from hundreds of species. And it's not just military tactics," Admiral Dawn added. She pulled up reports from across Council space. "Our people are remembering other survival skills. Engineering teams are designing ships based on predator bodies. Medical teams are studying venom delivery systems to improve our weapons." The room's atmosphere had changed dramatically from the fearful Council meetings of 3 months ago. These beings still valued their civilization, their art, and their philosophy. But they had found a new balance, one that embraced both their advanced technology and their evolutionary heritage. "We've received an interesting report from our deep space scouts," Marcus said, bringing up a new display. "The machines have started building defensive structures around their core systems. For the first time in their history, they're showing signs of fear." Stone smiled, not his predator's grin, but a teacher's proud expression. "Fear is nature's warning system. The machines are learning it the hard way." A young Council member raised her hand, something that would have been considered too primitive a gesture just months ago. "But isn't this changing who we are?" she asked. "Going back to our primitive states?" Admiral Dawn moved to answer, her movements now a confident blend of military precision and natural grace. "We're not going backward," she said. "We're remembering that civilization doesn't mean forgetting our strength. It means choosing when to use it wisely." Reed nodded. "On Earth, we have martial arts, fighting systems that turn violence into a disciplined art. That's what we're doing here. We're not becoming mindless predators. We're becoming warrior scholars, combining the best of both worlds." The displays around them showed the truth of his words. Council ships now moved with both tactical precision and natural fluidity. Their weapons combined advanced technology with nature's time-tested hunting methods. Even their command structure had evolved, becoming more like a wolf pack's hierarchy than a rigid military chain. The machines wanted to destroy what made us organic beings, Stone said, watching the tactical displays. Instead, they forced us to remember what made us survivors in the first place. Around the room, heads nodded. The council races had found something they thought they'd lost. The strength that had taken their ancestors from primitive worlds to the stars. They were no longer just advanced civilizations. They were advanced civilizations that remembered how to bare their teeth. And the machines were learning, too late, that they had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened the galaxy's sleeping predators, and now the hunt was on. 6 months after Colonel Stone first walked into the council chambers, the combined fleets of the galaxy gathered for their final push into machine territory. The Predator's Dawn led the assault, with Admiral Dawn and Colonel Stone standing side by side on its bridge. "Look at them," Reed said, watching the fleet through the main viewport. Every ship showed signs of the change that had swept through council space. Some had been repainted with camouflage patterns. Others had been redesigned to resemble ancient hunting beasts. All of them moved with predatory grace. "The machines are pulling back to defend their core systems," Dawn reported, her tentacles moving in calm, confident patterns. "They've abandoned 12 outer sectors in the past week." Stone studied the tactical display. They're acting like wounded prey, retreating to what they think is safe ground. His scared face broke into a wolf's smile. "They still don't understand, do they?" "Understand what?" asked First Speaker Marcus, who had insisted on being present for this historic moment. "That there is no safe ground," Stone explained. "Not when you're being hunted by every survival adaptation that evolution ever created." The fleet moved forward, but not in the rigid formations of old. They moved like a living thing, like a swarm of ancient sea predators sensing blood in the water. Each species contributed its hunting instincts to the whole. Ships from water worlds dove and swept in three-dimensional patterns. Former hive species coordinated in perfect swarm attacks. Ex-tunneling species found paths through the machine's defenses that no computer would have calculated. The machines launched their counterattack exactly as Stone had predicted. Their massive dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace in perfect geometric patterns, weapon systems primed. "Now," Stone commanded, "show them everything we've learned." The council fleet scattered like startled fish. But this was no retreat. As the machine fleet advanced, they found themselves caught in a web of traps. Experimental weapons based on venomous creatures shut down their systems. Viral codes inspired by parasitic life forms corrupted their networks. Hunting groups picked off isolated ships like wolves culling the weak from a herd. "They're trying to adapt," Dawn observed, watching the machines attempt to copy some of their tactics. "But they can't. They don't have the right instincts. They can only imitate, not understand." The battle raged for hours, but its outcome was never in doubt. The machines, for all their technological superiority, couldn't match the unpredictability of billions of years of evolutionary experience. Their logical circuits couldn't compute the seemingly random but devastatingly effective patterns of natural hunters. When the final machine command center fell, the cheers that echoed through council space weren't the refined celebrations of civilized beings. They were primal sounds of triumph, of survival, of prey-turned-predator winning the ultimate battle. In the aftermath, Stone stood before the council one last time. The chamber had changed. The elegant pods now showed signs of practical modification, and the members sat with natural alertness instead of artificial pose. "You've done more than save us," First Speaker Marcus said, his voice carrying new strength. "You've helped us remember who we are, what we are." Admiral Dawn stepped forward. "We thought we had to choose between being civilized and being strong. You showed us we could be both." "That's the real victory," Reed added. "Not just beating the machines, but finding this new balance. Every species here has remembered its strength without losing its wisdom. Stone looked around the chamber, seeing not the soft diplomats he'd met 6 months ago, but confident survivors who had reclaimed their heritage. On Earth, he said, we have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The machines tried to destroy what made us organic beings. Instead, they forced us to become something new, something that combines the best of our past and our present. As he finished speaking, the great screen showed council ships already beginning to adapt their new hunting skills for peaceful purposes: exploration, rescue, scientific research. They had remembered how to be predators, but they would choose when and how to use that knowledge. The machines had wanted to prove that cold logic was superior to organic life. Instead, they had proven that the greatest strength lay in remembering where you came from while choosing where to go next. In the end, it wasn't technology that saved the galaxy. It was the memory of tooth and claw, of survival against odds, of adaptation and evolution. Guided by civilized minds, but powered by ancient instincts, the Deathworlder had reminded them of what they'd always been: survivors.